Hey, buddy, I heard you looking for something a little special, huh? Like opening slot on Camelot? This will do. Thank you very much. Hails, minions and mortals. This is Fang from Lords of the Trident. And look, not everyone in the music industry is an angel. And I'm not talking about those weird sleaze rock bands like Sex Angels or Dirty Sinners. I'm talking about people who steal money away from hardworking bands like you and me. And for every Fang von Rathenstein out there giving away his advice for free and asking nothing in return, you have 10 jerks trying to sell you fake stardom. What am I talking about? Pay-to-play schemes. So, what is a pay-to-play scheme? Well, they come in many different forms, but most of them boil down to you either paying a promoter or selling a certain number of tickets in order to play a certain show. For those of you who watched my last Words of Fang video, you'll be generally familiar with some of the basic pay-to-play schemes out there. But for those of you who didn't, let's review. Pay-to-play number 1, straight up pay-to-play. This is where you give the promoter or venue a house fee, room fee, sound fee, whatever you want to call it, and you play for free. Thankfully, this is pretty rare. Pay-to-play number 2, purchasing tickets to sell. The venue will require you to buy a certain amount of tickets before the show, and you make your money by selling these tickets to your friends and fans, usually at an inflated cost. The venue will usually ask you to buy between $200 and $500 worth of tickets in order to get on a certain show. Out of the, let's say, 50 or so tickets that you're required to buy ahead of time, if you're able to sell, let's say 20 tickets at $20 a pop, you'll make $400 and you'll probably cover the cost of the amount that you paid to get the tickets in the first place. And if not, at least you get to share the stage with a big name act, right? Yeah, not always. They'll put those pay-to-play bands on side stages or bar stages and the like. The Rave in Milwaukee, Wisconsin is notorious for doing this. They'll put the bands on very early, very late, or even while the headlining band is playing. Let's say you're a huge fan of Scar Symmetry and you decide to play a side stage at one of their shows. How pissed would you be, and how pissed would your fans be if you paid to play that side stage and you ended up playing while Scar Symmetry was playing the main stage? I would be absolutely incensed. And this is not some hypothetical. I saw this happen at a Scar Symmetry concert at the Rave. Okay, besides all this, could you make money doing pay-to-play shows? Maybe. But again, the reality is that most people who are excited to see the show have probably already bought their ticket before you were added to the bill, so you're going to be begging randos to buy your last couple tickets from you. And again, it's the venue's job to sell the tickets, not the band's. Pay-to-play number 3, selling tickets without upfront purchasing. Some venues will not make you buy the tickets ahead of time, but will still expect you to sell tickets to your friends and fans. And they'll use phrasing like, "We expect bands who want to open for X, Y, or Z to be able to sell at least 20 tickets," or "Bands that want to come back to our venue should be expected to sell at least 30 tickets to a show." While this is way better than having to buy the tickets up front, it's still not fair to you and your band because you're doing all the work to sell the tickets and the only thing you get in return is to play the show. In some very, very rare circumstances, this can work out in your favor, but you have to ask yourself the following questions. Would enough of our fans buy tickets and travel to see the headlining band and us? Are the tickets fairly priced? Are we playing the main stage or the crappy side stage? If we're playing the main stage, when are we playing? How many people can we expect to see us in the time slot we're in? Are there any additional incentives? For example, if the venue sells out, all the bands get $100. Based on the headlining band, the time slot, and the ticket price, could we expect to make a decent number of new fans? Are we allowed to sell merch? And do we have to upscale our merch prices to match the headliners? For example, if we have $10 shirts, do we now have to sell them for $25? Does the venue take any cut of our merch sales? What are the penalties for not reaching our ticket sales goal? There are a couple of points here that are immediate deal breakers. First, if you're not playing the main stage, that's a hard pass. If you do play a second stage, it's going to be insulated from the main stage for obvious reasons, and not many people are going to spend too much time going over and checking out the other stages. Second, if you're not allowed to sell merch, that's a hard pass. You're not paying us, and we don't get to make any money? Gosh, sign me right up! Also, if the venue or the booking agent is forcing you to match prices of your merch with the headliner, you should fight back really hard against that. At the end of the day, People came there to see the headliner, not us. And there's no way that our $10 CD price is in any way, shape, or form going to prevent someone from buying the $35 headliner t-shirt. This is the stupidest thing I've ever encountered in all of the music industry, and to this day I still have no idea why it's even a thing. Oh, and the same thing with a venue taking a cut of your merch sales. The practice in general is just scummy, but if you're not making any money anyway, that's just terrible. Now, let me be clear. Pay-to-play shows are absolutely the worst, and I would never, ever recommend taking any of these gigs unless you're 10,000% sure that this is a step in the right direction for your career and you're ready to lose a whole chunk of money by doing so. And yeah, I'd like to say that we have never done a pay-to-play show, but the reality is that we paid to open for Halloween, and due to that, we met a person who'd become a gigantic supporter of the band and a really great friend. But again, that was a 1 in a million chance. In general, pay-to-play shows, just say no. Pay-to-play number 4, buying onto a tour. You know those opening bands that you see playing in front of, I don't know, like Camelot or Avenged Sevenfold? Most of those bands actually had to pay a certain amount of money per show to a promoter before they were allowed to play. We were actually approached to do a show like this, and we had to pay $400 for each show that we had the opportunity to open. So what does that $400 a night get us exactly? Maybe a backline or a sound guy or a spot in the touring van or maybe even a dressing room? Nope, nothing. And what's even worse is we would have to match our merch prices to the headliners, and the venues would get to take a cut of our merch sales every single night. Is it great exposure? Yeah, absolutely. Could it lead to a relationship with a famous headlining act to do some collaboration in the future? Potentially, yeah. Is it worth the $4,000 plus for gas, hotel, food, paying out the promoter, and everything else that you encounter on a tour? Probably not. Oh no, Fang, all of my favorite famous bands suck. They're making these small fledgling bands pay a bunch of money to buy onto their tours. Well, this is not always the case. The exception to the rule is when a band is friends with another band and they specifically request them for a tour. In that case, obviously, they won't make their friends pay to play on their tour. I am thankful to say that we are personal friends with a number of mid-tier acts who do not engage in this practice. They are awesome people, and I think they're so much better for that. Pay-to-play number 5, the absolute worst, Guerrilla Productions and Battle of the Bands. Okay, rewind about 5 years ago. If you were a band with any sort of online presence whatsoever, I absolutely guarantee that you were contacted by a representative of Guerrilla Productions. This company seems to have dissolved, but not before harvesting a ton of money from hardworking bands. And although the company is gone, the scheme is still unfortunately common. Here's how it works. Okay, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to still continue to use Guerrilla Productions as an example, even though they're gone, but just go ahead and substitute the name of any scummy company that's contacting you about this. What Guerrilla Productions would do is they would contact you saying that you were selected to join a national battle of the bands, and it just so happens that one of the semifinal rounds is taking place in your city. These shows would usually take place on off nights, Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, but they would offer big prizes to the winner of the battle. And of course, the winner was always chosen by crowd participation. So it was very important that you brought out as many of your fans to these shows as you possibly could. Did I mention that the tickets were $10 a pop? That's okay though. I mean, the winner gets $500 cash and 20 hours of studio time at a national recording studio. So how much of that $10 ticket sale did you get to keep as a band? You guessed it, 0. All of the money went to the promoter to cover expenses. So let's break this down. The promoter finds a bunch of gullible bands and fills 10 time slots on the battle. Each band gets 15 minutes to play. Tickets sell for $10, and the winner is basically determined by how many of their fans come out. Let's assume that each band sells 10 tickets. That's $100 per band. And there's 10 bands, so that's $1,000 total. So at the end of the night, the promoter picks some random band to win and hands them $500. And then he walks out the door with $500 in his own pocket. Now, how much work do you think the promoter did to actually promote the show? Nothing. Most bands that actually won these Battle of the Bands sold way more than $500 worth of tickets before they won that $500. Okay, well, what about the studio time? Well, most studios will probably donate 20 hours or so, because any band or studio that's familiar with recording an album will tell you that 20 hours is nothing, absolutely a drop in the bucket to record a full-length album. There have even been reports of winning bands from these battles being promised the money as checks in the mail, which never arrive. And their studio time is at studios that don't exist. Guerrilla Productions and companies like them prey on young bands with dreams of stardom. They tell them that their Battle of the Bands are attended by 250 to 300 people. I mean, who wouldn't want to play in front of that crowd? Well, ladies and gentlemen, here is an actual picture from an actual Guerrilla Productions Battle of the Bands. Yep. Feast your eyes on that sea of people. I bet you can't wait to start crowd surfing, huh? Look, there's no other way to say it. These guys are scam artists, and they're stealing from musicians, for Dio's sake. I mean, we already don't have money. Steal from a multinational corporation, steal from a crooked lawyer, but musicians? That's just terrible. If any of these people ever contact you to be a part of the scheme, you tell them to go die in a fire. In general, pay-to-play is never good. Not only does it prey on young and inexperienced bands, but it also hurts the music industry in general by churning out subpar shows. If I go see a big headlining act, I want to see a band that's good enough to open for that headlining act, not somebody who paid $500 to be there. Those bands exist, but they're too experienced and too smart to be paying money to play these shows. Why spend $500 to play for 15 minutes when you could use that money to set up your own show? When it comes to pay-to-play gigs, your first instinct should be to just say no. And your second instinct should be to hunt down anyone associated with pay-to-play shows,
cover them in gasoline, and light them on fire, and when you're about to flick the match into their scared, whimpering face, you say to them in an action movie style, "Fang sent me."
As always, thanks for watching, and if you want to help us put together a squad of elite hitmen to take down those pay-to-play promoters, join our Patreon at patreon.com/Lords of the Trident. We'll see you next time.